Anyone who litters deserves to be haunted by ghosts all the time. Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I am doing a one-off book review of Summer Suns by Lee Mandelo. This is a book coming out this month in September 2021. It's a horror LGBTQ plus story. It's published by TorDotCom, and I received this book as an e-arc from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. So thank you also to TorDotCom for approving me. I was very excited to read this, and I very much enjoyed it. I'm going to start the review by saying there's going to be no spoilers in this review and that the cover is absolutely fantastic. Super, super cool. So, what is this book? Summer Suns is an engrossing, genre-bending ghost story that is just as much about being haunted by regret. Ooh. So from the blurb, I've diminished it slightly, so I'm not talking forever. Andrew and Eddie were best friends, with Andrew set to join Eddie at grad school, until Eddie dies of an apparent suicide. He leaves Andrew with a horrible inheritance, a roommate he doesn't know, friends he has never asked for, and a gruesome phantom with bleeding wrists that mutters of revenge. As Andrew searches for the truth of Eddie's death, he uncovers the lies and secrets left behind by the person he trusted most, discovering a family history soaked in blood. Whirling between the backstabbing academic world where Eddie spent his days and the circle of hot boys, fast cars, and hard drugs that ruled Eddie's nights, the walls Andrew has built against the world begin to crumble, letting in the phantom that hungers for him. So this is an LGBTQ plus coming of age story, if you didn't pick up on that, as well as a horror. It's quite long, the novel, but I was enthralled the entire time because the story moves with a fluid grace with more than a touch of Southern Gothic flair. It is as much a ghost story as it is a story about a young man coming to grips with his own sexuality and his life choices. I will say, if it was just the life choices sexuality, I probably wouldn't have been too into it. I'm definitely not a contemporary fiction reader, and if I am, I prefer to read about women, but the ghost story really held it together for me. That's what makes this book so enthralling, is that it as I said, it's genre bending. It has lots of different things going for it, and I think almost everyone will find something that they relate to in this story. So the novel does a fabulous job showing how society can force someone to deny their own sexuality. I have a friend who didn't realize he was gay until his early 20s. When I was growing up, being LGBTQ+ was to be ridiculed. We used to say that's gay as a derogatory all the time, which obviously didn't make it a very safe space to contemplate your orientation. So it makes sense that a lot of us didn't understand these aspects of ourselves until we left home to go to school or even later in life. It's very sad, and I am so glad that my daughter, who's, just entering JK, won't grow up in this sort of constrictive society. At least I hope not. At least she won't get that from me and my husband. Anyway, that aspect for me was really resonant, and I really liked how Andrew wrestles with this. His growing realization of how his internalized homophobia has denied him not only love, but a true sense of self is really well done, and it's quite heartbreaking. I think anyone who has had their sexuality repressed by society can understand his struggle and will get something out of that aspect of the story. That being said, Andrew is extremely unlikable. He comes across as this rather stuck-up, too-cool-for-you dude who is so self-focused that he lacks empathy for others. He is obsessed, understandably so, with his deceased friend Eddie's suicide, but there are so many times in the novel I was like, God, man, shut up. Also, why is he constantly littering? Seriously, he's always throwing garbage out the window or on the ground. It drove me absolutely nuts, truthfully. Motherfucker deserves to be haunted for doing that shit. Anyone who litters deserves to be haunted by ghosts all the time. There's my hot take. The other characters in the novel were far more likable and interesting, but they weren't very fleshed out. We only see them when they're around Andrew, and because he's so inwards focused, we don't learn a lot about them. We're left to extrapolate some things ourselves, which is fine. I actually like doing that. But the novel is very much about Andrew. Related to this, while the buildup of tension towards sex was quite well done, especially as Andrew begins to accept things about himself that he denied before, I didn't really feel their emotional attachment. We don't often see Andrew and his intended at leisure. They're either driving their cars fast, arguing, investigating Eddie, or they're on drugs. As such, I was surprised the novel put so much emphasis in the final quarter on emotions, as it felt more like just sex to me, but maybe I just wasn't reading into it enough, but maybe it's because I found Andrew so unlikable I didn't see how anyone could possibly care for him. The supernatural elements of the book were really well done. They were super fun. I wanted more of this as they were incredibly creepy and fascinating, and they definitely fits with the horror genre. I wish some of Andrew's story was interspersed with Eddie's research into the curse, maybe as like flashbacks or journal entries, as that would have added to the haunting elements. As I wouldn't say they're lacking, but for the first little bit, it almost made it feel like it was a metaphor for internalized homophobia. Like, I honestly thought that's what it was for a while. I was like, oh yeah, this isn't really happening. This is just a metaphor, or this is just his psyche projecting. That's not it. This is a ghost story. In truth, the novel could have used more ghosts and less young male angst, at least for me. But then again, I'm an old woman, and I have no time for 20-year-olds and their problems. Sorry. Regarding the male angst, this is definitely a story about men, but I appreciated how the few women in the novel were treated. In some stories that feature mainly men, women seem to disappear entirely. It's like they don't exist. In this novel, it's clear that women do exist in the world, and as there are many background characters and some minor characters who identify as female. In fact, there's a small section dealing with the way women's bodies are often viewed as disposable by men, and that was really important to see in a story where women aren't as present. There's also a trans character who is not a stereotype, nor is their trans identity their entire personality, and that was really nice to see, because sometimes their identity as being trans is like the only thing about them, and that definitely was not the case in this story. So that was great. As someone who's into cars, and Fast and Furious was a big influence on my teenage life, and I mean Fast and the Furious #1. I am old, as I just said. I very much wanted to be Letty when I was 15, I think, or 16, and I dressed like her, much to my parents' mortification, because I have my own little car racing story that I'll share at the end. Anyway, I enjoyed the car racing scenes, and it was one of the only areas of the story where I connected with Andrew on, something other than repression. So I really liked those parts because I could kind of understand his addiction to the adrenaline. There are only a few car races in the story, but they are told in a rapid, entertaining way that was exciting and fun. I really liked that. I'm a little bit torn about the writing style. The novel has a very fluid prose, but I found it almost too descriptive heavy at times. It often slides into being verbose. I mean, like I wanted to talk about being verbose, but, this book is a bit flowery. The book is very long for what is ostensibly a rather light plot, too. The story is much more a coming-of-age gay awakening story versus a tight mystery. So if you're looking for something like Mexican Gothic or Rebecca, this might not be enough mystery for you. In truth, the mystery ghost story plot is a bit too obvious to be that compelling. It ties together well and makes sense, and I really liked how the ghost was handled, but I can't say I was blown away by any aspect of the plot, especially the climax. That being said, the novel is really, really good. It's very compelling. It's a compulsive read, and I definitely enjoyed it. I'm giving it a 4 to 5 stars. Thank you again to TorDotCom for the e-arc. I really appreciate it. If you're interested in my car racing story, here you go. If not, thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments if you plan on reading or if you have read this book. My car racing story. I think I've mentioned this before on my channel in like one of those tag videos, but when I was 18 or 19 or so, my friends and I came back from the movies, and we were going up this road near my house. And we, at this time, of course, as I said, we were obsessed with Fast and Furious and souping up our cars. I had a Honda Civic, a 99 Honda Civic, special edition, and I had a strut bar in it. I had a dual exhaust. It wasn't a dual exhaust. It was a tip that looked like a dual exhaust. I'm so cool. And I had an air intake, so this car was loud. It was also a hunk of junk because I beat the crap out of it because it was standard, and I learned to drive standard on the car. Anyway, so my friends and I had like similar cars. I think one had an Accord, one had my one had a 323, like a Mazda 323, and then my other friend had this van that was his dad's. So you had my friend and my other friend in the van, and then you had me and then the Accord, and then the Mazda. So the Mazda passes the Accord, and I'm behind them. And so then the Accord passes me and the Mazda. And I was like, no way I'm letting these guys win. So as we're going up this hill that has like a blind turn or a blind road on it, I passed both of them. And I kept going. And in my rearview mirror, all I see are police, lights. And I was like, oh shit, what do I do? So because this is in my province where I live, they had just implemented stunt driving regulations because of all the kids that were racing around because of Fast and Furious. So I was like, oh my God, if I get caught doing this, they're going to take my license away and I won't be able to go to university. So I took off. I turned on a side street, another side street, another side street, and I pulled into a driveway and I turned off the cart and I just sat there. I forced myself to sit there for 20 minutes just in the dark in some random person's driveway until finally I felt it was like safe to go. So I backed out and went this long, circuitous route to my friend's house, and I got there and they were they covered for me, my nice friends. They told them they didn't know who I was. So I guess the moral of the story is F the police. I don't know. There's no moral of the story. It's just an explanation of the things I used to do when I was young, which is why I have no tolerance for 20-year-old boys and their angst, because I've lived through it as a 20-year-old girl, and I'm just done. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. And again, check out the book Summer Suns. It's a lot of fun.